Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and welcome to the latest episode. It's Friday, the 10th of April 2026, and congratulations to us. We've made it through another week. So a massive shout out to Becky. We've just been celebrating how fantastic the spring shrubs and trees are looking this year, and I totally agree with you about how difficult it is to split grasses. Definitely not as easy as it looks. And also, I love your Easter display. You obviously managed to find your dangly bits, and I'm hoping to find mine for 2027. It's been really hot this week, and specifically Wednesday, really hot. It was about 24 or 25 where I am. And that was quite incredible that the temperature just literally shot up and then it's shot back down again. So it's 10 degrees cooler today on Friday. And strictly speaking, it was really shorts weather, but I am not ready to get my legs out yet for shorts. So I didn't get them out of the drawer, but I clearly am going to have to. I've been house sitting for a few days this week. I'm just back. It's been really, really lovely to be up there. But it does add another dimension to my day, having to come home every evening, put the seedlings back inside the greenhouse and watering them, make sure everybody's okay. And then coming back in the morning and making sure they're outside. Excuse me. And then making sure like all the door, window and vent combination is perfectly set. And then really just crossing my fingers, because once I leave, I can't go back. And there's nothing worse than driving away and then an hour later, suddenly all the clouds just disappear and it's absolutely baking hot. And you're just praying to the God of the greenhouse that everybody makes it through the day. So speaking of the greenhouse, I am finding the annuals quite stressy this year. I think it's a mindset thing because I did almost exclusively annuals last year. And when I had the trial beds in 2024, that was also all annuals. And I really didn't think twice about doing them. And then at the end of last year, I decided that I would get some more perennials. So I picked up lots of little plugs, which came in the autumn and they're in the ground. I'd like to say they're going great guns, but they're not. They're just sort of sitting there, and I'm hoping they're putting all their energy into getting their roots down, because they're certainly not putting it into any top growth. And since I've got all the perennials and I've bought a few more shrubs and a few more bits and pieces, I thought I could be a little bit more relaxed about the annuals, but actually the annuals are going to form the bulk of this year's sales. And now I'm doing things properly, or as in more properly than I was doing last year. I'm looking at them all like little pound signs, which is probably where I'm going wrong, because the minute somebody keels over, I'm just panic stricken about it. And the seed block ones need potting on already, which is something that I really, really need to get a move on with. Not all of them, just some of them. Keeping them at the right moisture level is an absolute mission. Because I think with hindsight, I've bought the wrong sized seed blocker. I should have bought the next size up. That is entirely my fault. And there's nothing wrong with the seed blocker. It's done a great job. But the blocks are very, very small. And as I say, they're about the size of a bar of dairy milk. So just keeping them satisfied and not dried up in these weather conditions is quite challenging. Now, everything in the trays is fine. That's because I vaguely know what I'm doing with trays. And then I've got a table in my greenhouse with a big plastic tray, just like one huge tray that's about the size of the table, and everybody gets watered from the bottom in this tray. So they sit in the tray and I pour the water in at the bottom, and they drink what they want, and then they get moved off back onto the shelving. But that only applies for things in trays, because everything that was soil blocked went into trays that don't have holes in the bottom. And so I'm trying to remember the thinking behind that, and I can't, but that was that. So I have to check everybody's bottom to see if they should be watered from the bottom or whether they need water adding from the top, but only down the sides, because if you water the tops, the blocks all break apart and crumble and just vanish. So yeah, it's been pretty epic, to be honest. Now the sweet peas are in and out and in and out in their crates. They're kind of, I guess, getting hardened off, really. I haven't checked this incredible epic 50 sheet tab of spreadsheet that I have all my information on there. I did think it would be something that I would check religiously before I did anything. And the reality is you just go out and go, yeah, you seedlings need to go outside, and they go outside, and that's it. But the sweet peas are doing really well. Now, the other things that are doing really, really well is the agrostemma, which is a new one for me this year. They are just absolute troopers. They're really fine. Also doing very well is the Ami and the scabious and stocks and snaps. Now, the stocks and the snaps are a bit of a surprise because I had a few issues with those last year and I did find them a bit temperamental. And it could be I haven't had time to overthink them this year, and they're just absolutely fine. The ones that are a bit slow are the Orlia, which I'm finding a little bit surprising because some of them self-seeded in the field last year, and once I realised what they were, I've left them in over winter, and some of them are just randomly all over the place. But I thought they would be a little bit more robust, and they are proving to be slow to germinate and just very slow to get going. And in the dreadful category is Nigella and Larkspur. Nigella, this is just weird. My first tray of Nigella has done absolutely nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. So that was obviously a dud batch, or I've done something wrong. I've got another batch coming through, but they all just seem a bit hopeless. And the Larkspur just giving me nightmares. They were the ones that spent a week in the fridge because they need cold stratifying. It's the first year that I've ever grown Larkspur, and I had them sort of lumped in with delphiniums in the sort of the terrifying category. Didn't want to have a go. Thought I would have a go, but if they don't buck themselves up and do something really dramatic, I'm losing faith in those. And then in the downright weird category, we've got the Saponaria. This is also a new one for me this year, and I had high hopes for them, and they're okay, but some of them have damped off. They seem to have put on a really leggy growth, and they're only tiny, so it's relatively leggy. So some of them have kind of damped off, and some of them are just leaning over to one side. Very strange. So again, they'd better do something fabulous this year, or I will just maybe not grow them again. And the best, most outstanding performers in the greenhouse are all the vegetable seedlings. Yeah. So the peas, the broad beans, the chard, they are all doing absolutely fantastically. They've outperformed all of the flower seeds, and they're all extremely big, and I think they need to go out, be hardened off, and then just get planted out. Actually just get them out of the way, because the broad beans and the peas are just taking up a lot of space now. But deeply ironic, and maybe I should just pivot and be a vegetable grower, I don't know. Now, in my garden at the moment, and I'm talking about this because I've just spent half an hour sitting in the garden, just sitting, taking 5 minutes, gathering my thoughts for the podcast, and just winding down at the end of the day, and just looking around thinking, this is why I love perennials and shrubs and things so much, because I've got some really lovely things in the garden, and I'm thinking, I don't know why I'm not growing these on the plot, and why I'm struggling with all these itty bitty tiny little things when there are just some lovely options in the garden. So I was sitting next to some enormous snowdrops. Now, these aren't the little tiny snowdrops that you find. These are Leucodium aestivum, grave-tide giant, and they're like absolutely massive snowdrops. If you haven't seen them before, definitely worth Googling them. They get up to around, well, mine are 90 centimeters. It says they can get up to a meter, but I'm not sure. And they are absolutely gorgeous, really gorgeous. I love those. I've also got a couple of broom plants, which is Cytisus, in my garden with a purple flower. That's very, very pretty, and I'm thinking about either digging mine up and taking them to the plot, or going to buy some more. They are gorgeous. They're in the pea family, so they've got these pretty little flowers. Again, probably easier to Google it because I'm going to murder the description. And also, right off opposite the bench in my garden, I have a wisteria. Now, does anybody grow this to sell it as a cut flower? I would love to know, because I was looking at mine thinking, wow, now that's pretty impressive. Now, mine is a baby. I've had it for maybe 2 to 3 years, something like that, not very long at all. And they're very inexpensive if you get them small and not trained or anything. So mine is trained up a pergola that I've got in the back. And I've just bought one, so it's going up one arm of the pergola, and then it turns left and it goes horizontally across the width of the pergola. And I have trained it to have as many flowering shoots as possible, which is what you want to do, obviously, but it takes a while because you still need the long whippy things to get the structure. And then obviously you then start, once you've got them in, you start pruning it so that you can get the flowering sort of clumps, if you like. It's an ugly word for what is a very beautiful plant, but you know what I mean. So it takes a little bit of time. And if you read all of the gardening literature about pruning wisteria, there's this rule, there's a formula like 2 2 and 7 7. So you, in February, which is the second month, you prune back to 2 buds, and in July, which is the 7th month, you prune back to 7 buds. But if you take the advice literally, which I used to a long time ago when I was first gardening, before I twigged that you can't do this, if you keep reducing the length of all of the whippy growth to either 7 and then 2, you end up with like no plants. So you've obviously got to let some of the stems go and then prune it with the flowering very firmly in mind. And I'm now looking at mine thinking, oh my goodness, I really need about 10 of these on the field, and see if I could do something with those. But I'm going to have to Google it, or ask my florist, because I've no idea. But I'd love to know if you grow wisteria and sell it. I would love to know how you get on with that. Now, the other things I've got in the garden are orange blossom, so Philadelphus, which is absolutely stunning. One of my favorite flowers, actually. I used to wear a perfume years ago that was orange blossom scented, and it was really quite spectacular. It was a bit much. I don't wear it anymore, but it's lovely, and the flowers obviously gorgeous. And the other thing that's lovely are hostas. Now, I've got about half a dozen hostas in my garden, and I keep them in pots, not just in pots, but in pots on a bench, which is itself on lots and lots of bark, so that the slugs cannot get to it. And I haven't had any damage for years, so it took me a while to work out where in my garden would suit them. And then I decided I'm just going to put them on the bench seating area, and never had a single problem. And they make the most gorgeous foliage. The leaves are beautiful, but then the flowers absolutely stunning. So if I can bear to cut them this year, which I couldn't bear to last year, I probably won't be able to this year either. You've got to have something that you just enjoy for yourself. Otherwise, I would raise everything in the garden to the ground and sell it if I could, and that would be awful. But hostas are lovely. One of the things that upsets me most when I go gardening is people have got hostas on the floor and they just get eaten, constantly eaten. And it is such a shame, because hostas are one of my favorite plants. I always forget they are, because they kind of just sit in the background, and they're not sort of shouty plants, I don't think. They're just so beautiful. And I always try and say to my clients, can we just dig it up and put it in a pot? And they're like, no, we like it there. And then about a month later, they're like, why has it been eaten? I'm like, well, I did try and tell you. But yeah, hostas, absolutely gorgeous. Now, on the field, everything is feeling like it's just about to kick off up there. The foxgloves have suddenly got their groove on. They've just shot up in the last week or so, probably with all of that sunshine. They're looking lovely, and the hydrangea plants that I have up there are sprouting. They gave me a bit of a wobble over winter, but obviously they come back. But I still look at them thinking, are you still alive, or are you dead? But they are very much alive. I spent 45 minutes weeding my new rose bed. Now, I've got my roses spread onto 1.5 beds, and then the climbers are all dotted around. But bed number 1 is at the toppermost part of my slope, and that area is the area that Nigel cleared with the turf. He scraped all the turf off with a digger for me last year, and one of the things that I hadn't really realised was the extent to which we have a creeping thistle problem. It's a royal we again. I have a creeping thistle problem out there. And of course, it was literally a field. It never got cut or grazed, so the grass was sort of not waist height, but it was very high, and so you often couldn't see a lot of the bad stuff that was hidden in it. Anyway, now the grass is gone, it turns out there is a massive creeping thistle problem, and it's a bit like whack-a-mole, because you get rid of one bit and then it just comes up somewhere else. And of course, the roots are spreading horizontally under the soil quite far down as well, and I'm no dig, so it's just going to be a bit of a mystery where they are and where they all crop up. So I've spent a bit of time getting that sorted. And the next thing that needs to go on bed 1 is the contents of the duck house. So if you listen regularly, you will know that we had a bit of a reshuffle with the chickens, and Roland, who lives with the ducks, he's sort of an honorary duck now. Like the ducks have learnt all of the calls and the noises that he makes. So when he gets a treat or he finds something interesting, he makes all his chicken noises, and the ducks just come thundering around the side of the house and just like gate crash everything and steal it from him. And he hasn't learned to stop doing it. He can't help himself. Anyway, he was a bit lonely because he just had Goose, and Goose has got this dodgy bottom. Anyway, Goose has gone to the old person's chicken section. She's still alive. She's just in a different section. And Roland now has 7 girls to keep him occupied. And he had a bit of a head spin for a week. He didn't know which way to turn. And if you keep chickens, and you know what cockerels are like, they have to get involved in everything. They like to micromanage everything that's going on. And he's got his work cut out because the girls come out in the morning and they scatter. So he spends all day trying to round them up and interfere in what they're doing and get involved in everything. So he's the happiest bird in the whole world. But what it means is that chickens now, there's 8 of them now, they go into the duck house every day and they scratch all of the floor up, and the ducks are on just the ground. In theory, the fence panels, 6-foot fence panels, keep any predators out. So we didn't put a floor down for the duck house. We just plonked the shed down. And the ducks obviously make a lot of mess in there. There's just constant 24 hours a day poo comes out the bottoms. And they have a washing up bowl in there for water. They like to spill it. They like to have a bath. They make a terrible mess. And then every so often I'll put a bark floor down. And I don't know whether it's just because they're heavy. There's only 3 of them. But they just trample everything, to pieces. And so they'd compacted the floor. Anyway, when the chickens moved in, they spend all day rooting through the forest bark, and they have completely upended the floor and just created this fantastic litter of bark and duck poo and shavings and everything else that I've put down there. And they've scraped it all up to the surface. So I just need to get in there with a rake and a wheelbarrow this weekend, get it all in the wheelbarrow, and then wheel it down to the rose bed number 1, and I'm just going to pop it all down as a mulch. It's not going to be enough of a mulch to stop the creeping thistle coming through, but it will help to keep the roses moist and just keep them in one place. Because what I noticed when I was weeding is that the previous top dressing of bark had worked its way down the slope. So the very first top row of roses didn't have anything around it anymore, and everything was kind of gathering around the base of the second layer of roses. So that is one of the joys of gardening on a slope. Things do not stay where you put them. Now, the tulip disaster, I've got to mention this briefly because it's just ongoing, isn't it? Row 2 has now been decimated. So they are doing what I thought they would do. They work their way from right to left, and they've now got on to row 2. And I'm past caring at this point. Like, I have just officially given up, and I can't bear to lift the tulips and throw them away. So I'm just going to let the rats just do what they want to do. I'm not even sure after this disaster that I'm going to do them again in 2020. What are we going to be, 7 next year? Yeah, I don't think I'm even going to do it, to be honest, because I'm every time I go on Instagram, I'm seeing everybody's tulips and they look amazing, which makes me feel like a really useless grower. But secondly, I have seen a post earlier today, actually, from a grower in Bedfordshire who was talking about the impact on the heat this week on hers, and hers kind of all just kind of finished in 48 hours, which was a bit of a shock. Now, she's got a chiller, so she can keep them chilled for a while, and that's fine. But interestingly, she was talking about now having a gap in her sales, which I hadn't thought about stuff like that. And so she's looking at a bit of a gap because the tulips have all peaked too soon. Now, what was I going to say? Yeah, also the tulips that I have in my garden are fabulous, and the tulips that I have in some pots on the field just purely for decorative purposes to try and make the place look less like a field, they've all done really well. So I'm just cursing the rats anyway. I've got a huge, enormous tub of alliums. I've got 100 alliums in this tub. It's one of these tubs where you buy a tree, and it comes in a huge tub. I didn't buy a tree. I just go down to my wholesalers and they have leftover tubs, and I pinched one from there, and it's great. And this tub had a serious level of security on it, which, although my crates did, somehow the rats got around that. they did actually get in this tub until I blocked up all of the drainage holes with chicken wire. And it's also got chicken wire over the top. And since I did all of that, either they genuinely couldn't get in, or more to the point, I think they'd already had the tulips out by the time I did that, because I did alliums all at the bottom, nice and deep, and then I just had a bag of tulips that I actually bought from the garden centre, and they were lovely, but they weren't expensive, proper ones I bought from my crates. Anyway, the rats got in, and I think they've taken all of the tulips out because nothing is coming through tulip wise. But I've got all these fantastic alliums coming through. For some reason rats don't like alliums, which is something, it's a bonus, something that they won't eat. But I'm actually a little bit too frightened to take the chicken wire off the top of the alliums, just in case, in desperation, they decide that they do like alliums after all. So all the foliage is just getting squished because it's got to the top of the mesh and it can't get through. But I'm thinking that I'm going to have to strip all the foliage off anyway when I sell them, so it doesn't matter. So until the flowers start coming through, I'm going to leave the mesh very firmly in situation. So that's all that's been happening up there. I have to say, I haven't done any work really apart from weeding all the roses this week, because until the annuals get up there isn't an awful lot else for me to do apart from the bed prep, obviously, and mulching, which I'll be getting on with this weekend. Now, in other news, Chelsea Flower Show ticket prices. Oh my goodness, have you seen these? So it's been getting worse for years. I haven't been for a very long time. I probably went about, 5-6 years ago. And I was an RHS member at the time, so I got a member price. And I haven't actually been as a non-RHS member. And my goodness, the pricing is absolutely horrendous, like well over £100, like 135, something daft, going up to even more. And that's just to get you through the door. That's not for anything else. Even the late entry tickets, which is either from 3:30 or 5:30, the resale ticket prices was £90. So I was kind of excited about going, and I thought it would be wonderful. And now I'm thinking, well, I'm not sure if it's going to be £90 worth of wonderful, because I've still got a train ticket to get into London, and the tube, obviously, to get there, and then the parking at the train station, and a day of lost earnings. So all in all, it could be a horrifically expensive day. And I'm thinking maybe not. But then I remember kicking myself last year that I didn't go. And of course, the nettles are going to be featuring this year, and I really want to hunt them down. Plus, all the flowers in the marquee. So I'm in two minds about it. But I just thought, gosh, the pricing, unbelievable. And also the other thing I've done, I've got the bath set up for trying to salvage the ducks' water every day. So I think I told you this already, that I found a bath that was dumped outside a house. It was being given away last year. And I took it for free, which is great. And I was going to use it this year to rehydrate all my hydrangeas. But I'm now looking at this bath thinking, actually, what I really need to do is save the ducks' water. So the ducks have these watering, what do you call it? Oh my goodness, washing up bowls. That's it. They have washing up bowls all over the place. And then they have a kids' paddling pool. And they have to have fresh water morning and evening. And what I've been doing is tipping the water out on the ground, and it kind of drains from their area down into the section where I had the sweet peas, which is one of the reasons they did so well last year, because they got covered in pooey water twice a day, which they loved. But I've really been thinking I need to be a bit more strategic about it. And I noticed that the water Bowser IBC1 was actually down to about 500 litres. Now it takes 1,000. So I've got through 500 litres since the last time we had a colossal amount of rain, which obviously I can't remember when that was. But it's still quite shocking when you see that you've only got 500 litres left in that one. Now the other tanks are full, but the ducks obviously need this constant supply of water. And I'm thinking I cannot just keep tipping these water bowls out every day. So what I'm going to do is tip them into the bath. And then the plan, and this is just a plan, is that the mud and the silt will just sink to the bottom of the bath. And then I will be able to use the water that's on the top. And I'm hoping that that's going to work, and not just that I'm basically going to create some horrific septic tanks sewage type system that just attracts flies, because if that happens, I'll have to revisit the plan. And so I have to go to Screwfix and buy a plug to go in the bottom of the bath. So I have to take my measuring tape up to measure to get the right size plug. So that's also what I'll be doing this weekend. So final bit of the episode, plant profile. And this week I'm talking about hydrangea limelight. And I don't know why I haven't talked about this before, to be honest, because when I looked at my plant profitability list for last year, hydrangea paniculata limelight was at the number 2 slot, which makes it like one of my most profitable flowers. And so I thought, gosh, I better talk about it tonight. And the reason it did so well on my profitability list was because apart from the initial cost of buying the plants, and I did only have one last year, so you can tell the scale I'm working at here. I have got some more now, but I didn't get round to planting it, which won't surprise you. But we had, of course, a number of heat waves and we had a drought all of last year. And I thought, well, hydrangea like water, they need a moist soil. And there wasn't a lot of space on the plot last year, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to support it. So I left it in its pot from the wholesaler and I put it in a tray and I just kept watering it, and whatever came out of the tray, of the pot rather, would sit in the tray and then the plant would just soak it all back up. So very low maintenance cost, as in cost of production was literally the cost of the plant, and then there was no other cost to it whatsoever. So that, I think, is probably why. Also, I sold lots and lots of stems to my wedding florist. It was the one thing that I actually managed to grow successfully, because I basically bought the plant and it just flowered all summer long, and it was amazing. So in the autumn, off the back of that, I went and bought a whole load more, plus a pink Annabelle. Now, I am a huge fan of Annabelles. I love them, but they are just really, really super big, and I know lots of other people have them. So I thought, well, I'll go and get a pink one. So I have one pink Annabelle and we'll see what that does this year. Now, the hydrangea is a big group of plants. There's obviously the mop heads and the lace caps, but the species itself comes from southern and eastern China, Korea, Japan, and Russia. But the limelight cultivar was actually developed by the Dutch in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And so it is slightly different from the others in that it is much more sun tolerant. So the species ones are happy in a partial shade and they do like a moist soil. But the limelight is much more sun tolerant. So that's great. And also, I think, a little bit more drought tolerant, because on days when I didn't water mine, it did absolutely fine. And the macrophylla ones are the ones that actually can change color based on the soil acidity. So they're blue or the pink, and then you can actually get them to change depending on what you do with them. But limelight starts off lime green, and then it kind of goes creamy white, and then it has this sort of blushy pink towards the end of the season. Now, I found it to be incredibly reliable. It already had growth on it when I bought it, but it flowers on the new growth. So you just prune it hard down at the end of the year and it just pops back next year like magic. It's amazing, which is good because you don't have to worry about any winter damage, really. There's no wind rock or anything like that. So other plants that have got, big tall stems and they just lose their leaves, you can find, especially if you've got hardly any soil like me, in the new area, there's just virtually nothing out there. So I don't want things moving around. So I just cut all the hydrangeas right back down and they're all sprouting really, really nicely. Mine was excellent in terms of yield last year. Lots and lots of sellable stems and a really nice long stem length for quite a lot of them as well. It flowered from midsummer, I don't remember when, I'd have to check all the dates, but right through until the autumn. And it was so pretty. And it was like having a new plant every month because the colours of the flowers changed, which I have to say I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be lime green all the way through the year, and it wasn't, but the pinky blush tinged in the autumn was absolutely gorgeous. And the heads can also be dried and used in the winter. Now, I did try this. I've got to say I prefer the big, massive mop heads for drying. But limelight will also do the same job. They're just very fragile and I don't know, I just felt that they were better when they weren't dry. The strong stems were fantastic. Now, I didn't stake the one I had in a pot, and I'm not planning to stake the field ones this year either. They are quite adaptable on the soil type. So I'm on a chalk where I am, and it's mostly it seems mostly to be like a rubble. I mean, I can't tell you how many bricks I've got out of the ground. I don't know what they did on the field, but huge bricks, great big lumps of limestone and chalk and all sorts of stuff in there. Surprising amount of glass as well for a field, which is a bit worrying. But mine have been absolutely fine on it over the winter. There's no signs of any issues whatsoever. So I'm fairly confident they'll be fine. And as I say, my plant last year got absolutely baked in the sun. Didn't give two hoots about that. So I'm confident that these guys will be fine this year. And I did manage somehow to get a good price per stem for them, I think, because the florist knew what she was doing when I didn't have a clue. It's not a filler flower, really. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Would you say I don't know if I'd say it's a focal, but it's kind of not a filler either, because it's much better than a filler. My florist used it for weddings. I think it went in some bouquets as well. I know she likes a strong stems, and it's just a downright pretty flower. I mean, it just is really pretty. The color changes were absolutely gorgeous, and the big heads on them, and they were big, they just take up a lot of space. So I guess there's a lot of bang for your buck, really. Now, the only thing with them, conditioning. So this is important, and this is the same for any woody stem. That if there's a huge flower at the top of it, then, and also the longer the stem is, the harder it is for the plant to get the water all the way from the base of the stem right up into the flowers. Now, the things you can do with hydrangeas is dunk them in water to rehydrate them. Now, this is not the same as making sure that you cut them when it's cool, put them in a bucket full of water and keep them somewhere cool anyway. This was challenging last year. I was keeping cut flowers in Kylie's room, and I mean, it's a brick building. It should stay cool, but it gets all of the afternoon sun. So things were baking out there. And in desperation, I actually brought mine home, and I conditioned mine in my shower tray, which was absolutely great for them and not so convenient for me, because I couldn't actually get into my shower while I had hydrangeas conditioning in there. This is why I grabbed this free bath last year, because the plan was to use that this year. But I think I must have been just hallucinating, because I would never have enough water to fill a bath to hydrate some hydrangeas. That would be wildly extravagant. So if we have another crazy heatwave drought situation, they'll all be coming home and going in my shower. But the myth is definitely not the myth. The saying is definitely true that you can rehydrate hydrangeas by fully immersing them in water. Like, I just put mine in the shower tray, cover them in cold water, and just squash the heads down. And they come out looking absolutely brand spanking new and amazing. And probably I should keep doing it, because my water is cleaner at home than it is on the plot, because it's all rainwater. And sometimes things come down the drain pipes into the bowsers. So I can highly recommend Hydrangea Limelight. Really, really super plant. All right, that's me. I've been talking for far too long. I hope you have a wonderful weekend wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I hope the weather is nice for us. Good growing conditions is what we need. And actually, we do need a little bit of rain now. I never thought I'd say that, but we do. So all the very best. And please come back and join me on Tuesday for the next episode. You are always very welcome. All right, all the best.